Welcome to the Property Management Law Solutions Podcast. Your host, Attorney Tim Baldwin, will guide you in all things property management, law, markets, politics, and commentary. Your property is his priority. Here's your host, Attorney Tim Baldwin.
Everybody, welcome to the Property Management Law Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Attorney Tim Baldwin. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We have a special guest with us today, and I'm excited about this one because it's a fellow landlord attorney, but he's in the neighboring state of Alabama. His name is Taft Hughes. Welcome, Taft.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today. This is going to be exciting for me because I don't have a chance to really powwow, you might say, with other landlord attorneys on the show. I typically bring on other real estate professionals and we talk about their business and, practices and these types of things. So this is going to be great. So thanks for joining us, Taft. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you come from, and kind of how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So, like I said, my name's Taft, and I've been an attorney, since 2015. I've done all types of different areas of law, but for the past, I don't know how many years I've been doing this, property management type of stuff. We in Alabama, so essentially Mobile and Baldwin County, so South Alabama. We represent landlords through all types of stuff, obviously with the evictions, but like fair housing issues, all types of like tenant complaints. We help with lease violations and drafting leases and drafting addenda to those leases and different management agreements. So we handle quite a bit of stuff. But in the spirit of, I guess, time and make sure we don't go over. I could go over this for probably 4 more hours, but we do a lot of different things, and we're one of the, I don't want to be too boastful here, but we have one of the largest landlord-tenant firms in this area, and we file about 1,000 evictions a year, and that's pretty standard. So it's exciting times. There's a lot of stuff going on, especially with the new administration. Fair housing laws are always changing, and with the new every regime, so to speak, things change.
Yeah.
So we got to stay on top of that. But we're doing this a long time, and looking forward to helping whenever we can. So
yeah. So you guys are essentially what we do at our law firm in the state of Florida, but you're in Alabama, and you're just right down the road from us. You're only about an hour away in Mobile, and so you and I connected through a mutual client who had business both in Florida and Alabama. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we made that connection and we began to get to know each other, I thought, man, this would be great if you would just come on the show with me and we talk about this stuff because, I think and I told you before, but one of the things that I see that I think would be helpful for people is to understand which attorney is right for them. I think that a lot of landlords or property managers, they may either they're not sure what to look for exactly, or they don't quite understand what might be the differences from attorney to attorney. It's like, everybody, you can practice law, so what? So can this guy,
Mm-hmm.
So what makes you different from the other attorney down the road or down the state? So let's talk about that. Because I know you and I think, can see eye to eye on this because of the similarities of what our businesses do. So from your experience, let's start with, what do you think that there may be misconceptions about, an attorney is an attorney?
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that and how that's really a misconception.
Sure. So when I first became an attorney, I always thought the same thing, like, man, well, they're an attorney. If they're an attorney, then they must know what they're talking about. They earn that degree, they earn that paperwork. that status. So they've got to be smart. They've got to be, a responsible person. And, an attorney is an attorney. If they know how to do landlord-tenant law, then they're probably doing it the right way, doing it on time, do what they got to do. Well, as I got more experience, I realized that that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
And one little rule I go by is what I've learned, I guess, is you get what you pay for. If you if you're paying for an attorney, a low rate, not all the time, but usually you're going to get what you pay for or get mediocre service, right? So keep that in mind. But some things that you really want to look for in an attorney, especially just like right off the bat, is how much they communicate with you.
Yeah.
If they don't communicate with you and you always have to follow up with them over and over and over again, you may want to start looking for another one, or just bring it to their attention and just keep hounding them if there's no there's no other option.
Yep.
But I would definitely keep in mind that not all attorneys are the same. My dad, he was an attorney for 47 years, and he always told me, attorneys are like hats. If one doesn't fit you just right, go find another one.
Yeah.
There's always an attorney that will match up your interests, your work ethic, your expectations. There's a lot of attorneys out there, and most of the time you'll find the one you need or the one you want and works with you well. You just have to kind of do a little legwork, and sometimes it's trial and error, but they're out there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I want to park on the communication one because, in my experience, and I've been an attorney for 21 years. That is the one I think that probably is the most distinguished characteristic between attorneys. And I would say that a lot of the business I've gotten from clients who have left one attorney and came to us is probably that point, that when they try to get a hold of their attorney, and honestly, they may not even know who their attorney is, especially if it's a large firm.
Absolutely.
And they got numerous attorneys, they don't even know who their attorney is. And so whether they email or they call, they don't hear back for it. What the response is to me is weeks. It could be weeks before they hear back. Well, in the world of landlord-tenant law or property management, that's just, you can't operate that way. Your problems happen now, and a lot of times they have to be resolved in a very timely manner, especially if you're dealing with lease violations or potentially even dangerous or hazardous situations. So that is definitely by far the top reason, I would say, that I've seen clients come to us.
Yeah, we've gotten, several just big clients that come over to us because they're saying our landlord or landlord attorney won't call us back. He won't respond to emails, and we have 5 or 6 evictions that are just sitting there in court. We don't know when the trial date is. We don't know anything is. We asked for it, or we sent 7 evictions over to him last month, and he hasn't even responded for anything. And they know that they haven't been filed because I've asked another attorney. So it's just, of course, this plays into time is money in this business.
Yeah.
You've got people who, these tenants are just sitting in there for months at a time. It's ripe for eviction because they haven't paid rent. And when you send it over to your attorneys and they don't do it, they just sit on it. Well, if it takes them a month, well, that's another month missed rent. That's
Right.
more income that you're losing. And
Yep.
we all know that you've got staff to pay, you've got insurance on the property, you've got all this stuff. You just got operation costs, and if they're not getting paid, then what's the point? So it's just a drag on the bottom line. And if you have an attorney who just sits there, even though they're affordable, you're losing more money than you're paying, and it's just not sustainable. And it's about time to find somebody new.
That's what I do. That I tried to point that out, even with some marketing material that I have. When you calculate the lost rent for delays in your case, it by far costs you more money than if let's just say you pay an attorney $150 more for that eviction that you filed. Well, $150 might be 2 or 3 days of prorated rent for those number of days that you're losing. But if you're waiting for weeks, and I've seen cases where we've taken over
Yeah.
for other attorneys because we got a new client, and we go in and we look at the case, and it's been sitting there for months. And strangely enough, there was no reason not to go ahead and file motion for final judgment because the tenant defaulted. Whether that's because they didn't answer or they didn't post rent into the court registry, and it's just sitting there. And there's no reason why that attorney could not have just filed the motion for default months ago. So
Absolutely.
yeah, no, you're exactly right on that. And you mentioned as well, and I think this is really important. It's something that property managers should understand, and that has to do with the CRM or the system by which you process evictions. Speaking for our law firm, when one of our clients wants to submit eviction, of course, it's done online. It's an easy process for them to kick off the eviction. And then they have their own client portal system to where they can see everything that's happening in their case. So they see real-time updates. They see what the tenant did, if anything, what we did. If there's any deadlines, they see the deadlines. And that right there, it's a part of the communication, but this is the part where the attorney's system itself helps them to be informed as to what's going on. What do you think about that part of it?
Yeah, I think I think it's a great way to maintain that open line of communication and trust in your process, but also in the relationship between you and your client, because they know that they're getting what they paid for. They can see immediately where the case is, the status, the time expectation. I mean, if you think about it from if you were the customer, and say, for instance, just as an example, you take your car in to get repaired, and they happen to have an online portal which shows you the step where your car's its intake is up on the riser. They're working on it now. They're on the tires. Now they're on the oil change or whatever. You can see when it's going to happen, what's going on. You're like, that's cool. Now I know when to expect it to be done. I have real-time information. I'm really happy with the service. So I'm going to pay X amount of dollars for this, and the customer service was great, in and out. They knew exactly what I needed to be done. There was no confusion.
Yeah.
Same thing with, handling a case. If you have questions on what the status is, you can either ask the law firm or in the portal, boom, there it is. They're going to file my default judgment in 2 days if the tenant doesn't respond.
Yeah.
Great. Now I know. So I can always just say, well, if my boss, my regional, wants to know the status of these 3 evictions, I can just go in and say, this one's just got filed. This one's going to be set out in 2 days. And this one, they're waiting for an affidavit for whatever reason, whatever it is. Information sharing obviously is a fantastic thing. And with technology we have these days, it's even more easy, and it's great. But our firm, we're not as high tech as some other firms, but we still are able to provide that information with, what's the status of these 2 cases, of these 3 cases. We can respond within 24 hours. If that, usually sooner than that. And we don't necessarily have an online portal because some of our clients aren't as tech savvy as others, and it's hard to be efficient when some clients just refuse to participate in that kind of stuff. So we have to adjust our process to accommodate those folks. But we still get the job done. We're very transparent, and to make sure that, again, time is money and communication is key.
What about knowledge, right? Expertise.
Yeah.
So speaking for myself, back in 2006, when I left the state attorney's office and I decided I was going to start my own practice, and this was the area that I decided I wanted to specialize in. And so at that time, I just saturated myself in everything I could possibly learn about the law, the business, I actually ended up getting my broker's license both in Florida and Alabama. We
Nice.
talked about that,
Yeah.
but everything I could possibly learn so that I know the business, I know the concerns, the interests, the process, procedures, um, the the defenses that could possibly be raised, all of it. Okay, and ever since then, I've just kept up with it, and so that to me, I think is critically important. I'm sure you would agree with that. But I know this: I've heard other attorneys speak, maybe as a conference or podcast or something like that, and while it's clear they have a grasp of a lot of it, sometimes I think that they maybe have missed keeping up with certain
Hmm.
things that have happened over the years. Maybe it's because they're comfortable. Maybe they have enough clientele. They don't feel like they need to as much. I don't know. But when you hear them say something that's blatantly wrong, it's not, it's not in the statute, or it's contradictory to the statute, or contradictory to the plethora of case law out there. And then you hear them say, it's like, oh man, those people are listening to that attorney, assuming that this person is speaking, correctly on the issue.
Hmm.
So what's your experience in that regard, in the attorneys that you've seen around who maybe are presenting themselves as experts, but man, they're missing the mark?
Well, in our practice, or in our profession, it's hard to it's hard to do in a tactful way. Say, look, you're just wrong,
Yeah,
and you can't necessarily go to their client and say he's wrong.
right.
Do not do that. Please
Exactly.
do not do that. So, all we can do is just maintain our level of knowledge and coverage of new laws and things they develop. So when the time comes where if we're representing somebody and that same issue comes up, we are prepared. We know what's going on. For instance, we have you're mentioning like some attorneys that may be just comfortable in where their positions are. Maybe they have all these associates that do this stuff, and they're just the figurehead of the firm,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. Um, I've had one where the other attorney tries to post when I represent tenants maybe 3 times a year, but um, sometimes, like I've got one right now, this lady, the landlord has tried to evict this guy 4 times, 4 times, and has hired an attorney twice. And all the notices are incorrect. They just
Yeah.
provide, in Alabama, it's 7 business days for them to cure, to pay or stay. Um, uh, or pay and stay, excuse me. She provided them a 7 calendar day notice. She provided him another one the next eviction. Then her attorney got on it, and he provided one that was a 7 calendar day notice. Got that dismissed, and he did it again.
Yeah.
So the notices, we'll get into that later, maybe, maybe not, but the importance of knowing the law, even the basic stuff,
Right.
it's it's the foundation of the eviction.
Yep.
And if you do have an attorney who may be cheaper but doesn't know a lot, or doesn't know the full law or the new nuances of the new stuff, like we said earlier, that $150 that maybe paying an extra for this attorney may cost you 20 grand in a fair housing complaint in 2 years. So I mean, pick your poison. I don't know
Yeah.
how you want to do it, but that
Yeah.
you got to make sure that your attorney is up to date on what's going on, even though they're well established, or not old, but you know what I mean, like just very
Yeah.
experienced in years in life and in the profession. It makes a huge difference because even some lawyers are like you and I are relatively young in the sense of some of our peers that are in their 70s
Right.
working away still. We may be young in that comparison, but we know what's going on and we're in the middle of it. We're in the thick of it every single day. These guys may be like head of their firm and just their name is there. They've been around for so long, but that doesn't mean they know more than we do,
Yeah.
right? And we may know a strategy or a defense to some tenants' claims because we've been handling that type of stuff just previously in a different case, and this older folks are just sitting, going to work, doing a few things, and then going home every day while we're at nighttime doing whatever, researching, make sure we're fit and ready to go for our clients because that's who we represent.
Well, and what that what that means though is if they're, the head of the firm, and there's obviously that's a good thing, right? I mean, they've
Yeah,
worked their
sure,
entire
sure.
career, they have associates, it's great, Um, but if if they haven't created a culture in their business of learning and being the best experts they can be in this business and providing that mentorship for the
Yeah.
associates, then they're really doing a disservice to the client.
Hmm.
Because you and I were talking about this the other day, last week, because you and I are going to have a seminar that we're going to present here upcoming with fair housing, which is going to be great.
Hmm.
And we probably should plug that here in just a little bit. But I showed you some of the things that what I look at. The resources. There's treatises, there's case law programs. There's keeping up with the updates. And so everybody should be doing that. If you're an attorney, that's the kind of work it takes for you to be able to stay on top of the issues. And as you said, and it's the same way in Florida, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you've got a bad notice,
Yeah.
that primarily is the tenant's defense. I mean, in most cases, that's what they try to defend on. And
Hmm.
so, when we look at that, we always say to the client, look, here's an issue. And sometimes it's a small issue. It could be a little thing. But
Sure.
with Florida, there's 67 counties and there's county judges, county court judges within those counties.
Hmm.
So there's hundreds of county courts in Florida. And they may view these notices differently. So depending on what county you're in and which judge is looking at your case could impact the outcome.
Hmm.
And then so you inform them about that. And then ultimately they say, maybe I'm willing to take the risk. It's not that big of a problem. And it may not be. So maybe we move forward.
Yeah.
Or we start over, right? We make sure that even though it's a small chance of a defense, we fix it. And that way you eliminate it, So speak to that, I guess, from your side of it, because that's what we see here in Florida.
Yeah. So my practice, we are in two different counties, in Mobile County and Baldwin County only. That's why it's the Mobile Bay evictions, just around the Mobile Bay.
Yeah.
So, you know, as an attorney who practices regularly in both counties, I actually sit as a special district court judge in Mobile County whenever it's basically like a substitute judge. It's just something in case there's a sick child or something, or they got to go on vacation. I'm happy to step in. But, you have to know the nuances and the different preferences of each judge and what they expect to see, what's very persuasive to them more than, I wouldn't use the same argument necessarily for the judge and one of the judges in Mobile County that I would use for Baldwin County, depending on the argument, because they may not find that big of a deal. Like, you know, maybe like a unauthorized animal over in Mobile County is not that big of a deal, but in Baldwin County, we have multiple notices for that. Like that guy's got to go. Like it's just we can't do that. Mobile
Yeah.
County, like give him another chance.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just it's important to get the attorney that knows these things, knows not necessarily the judges, but the nuances that it is to argue in front of them that would be most successful. And that also goes into the whole attorney search. Like it takes some time sometimes to find the right attorney. But I would say that one of the things is word of mouth, not necessarily advertising campaigns win cases,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in landlord-tenant. You never really see, at least in Alabama, like, landlord-tenant lawyer, the billboards and the commercials and stuff. But word of mouth is very strong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But go into the whole thing of all these different judges in these counties and all these different things to consider. I mean, when you get this far into the game or in the case, you invest all this time and money, and you want to know it's going to happen. You want to make sure you trust your lawyer,
Yeah.
and your lawyer is going to do the right thing and get this thing through. Because at the end of the day, you want to just lower your stress, and just have peace of mind. Like me, I pay good money for for peace of mind because, I mean, it's peace of mind. I mean, well, who
Yeah,
doesn't want that?
that's right.
So that's another thing you consider, when you're choosing a lawyer. Like, is this guy make me feel like he's going to do the right thing? Can I trust him? And if I do trust him, there's one less thing I got to worry about. I give it
Yep.
to Taft or I give it to Tim and their firm. It's going to get done. And I know what's going on when it's going on because I have the client portal. I got it. It's boom. It's like if my boss wants to know what's going on, let me find out real quick. There it is. Send my email off. My upper management's happy with me because they're happy with the firm. I can stick with these guys. It flows very well. And if you
Yep.
have somebody who knows what they're doing, who stays up on top of stuff, who teaches you a thing or two, I mean,
Yeah.
you learn something from your lawyer, that's pretty good. They don't just hide the ball all the time and say, give me this information, we're going to take care of it. Here's your results. Like, you want to develop a relationship with them because inevitably you're going to be working with them for a long time, hopefully.
Yep.
And you learn something from them. And I think that's important because always, I make sure that whenever I go to an apartment association meeting or something, I try to enlighten the members, but just something new, like something to think about. Here comes another regulation from HUD. We got to keep up with this, or here's something that you may not know, but like I had somebody who tried to say an ESA, a boa constrictor was an ESA. It's not. Like just little weird things. Like you just got to make sure that people don't get scared when they hear fair housing because
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
talk to me or I can answer a question. I want you to learn along with me. There's a lot out there, and I
Yeah.
want to help people get better at their job too.
Well, two things that you pointed out. The trust aspect
Yeah.
is huge, and that's one thing that I have hung my hat on over the years is to develop trust with
Yes.
my clients, and that doesn't just happen. When you hire an attorney, that relationship's new,
Hmm.
and yes, you want to trust him. I mean, that's why you're hiring that attorney. But putting in the time is what it is. I mean, it's like any other relationship. You got to put in the time with
Yes.
that person and show them, first of all, that you are looking out for them and that you actually care about the results, and that you're trying to help them with whatever outcomes they're trying to achieve,
Hmm.
and you're showing your expertise in the subject matter. And so, and again, it takes time to demonstrate that. But I can just tell you, like for us, we just onboarded a client last week. Was last week, a week before, and this is a large client. This is a statewide. Actually, they're a nationwide company, but here in Florida, we represent all of their properties statewide. It's a big account,
Wow.
and so I've had these conversations, of course, with the supervisor, and of course they called me with some questions. They had some questions already. Took the time, explain it, of course, get to the issue, get to the conclusion, and then he had another question the very same day. He called back. He said, "Man, I know I'm probably bugging you already." I'm like, "Man, no." I was like, "This is why you're paying us."
Yes is right. That's right.
And he's like, "Well, man, you've been a huge help already." I mean, that was his response. So just showing that you're answering the phone, right?
Period. Yes.
And then get in spending the time with them. That's what's going to develop that trust. And I think if you do it the right way, it doesn't take long at all for that to
No,
happen.
no, and I always put myself in the client's shoes, especially new clients. If I was to hire, um, I don't know, a contractor to do something on my house. Like, hey, this is what I was thinking. What do you think about this? Or, hey, are you going to be here at what time are you going to be here? 9 a.m. on Tuesday. Great. He shows up at 9 a.m. or 8:50.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like
Yeah.
I can trust him. He's consistent, especially in the new relationship. Here's what we can do for you. Get a phone call. Hey, yeah, let's talk about it. I know you're busy. No, this is why I want to show you that we are capable and competent and responsible and responsive.
Yeah.
So, when you have an issue, either you or your upper management, because we want to make you look good, make your upper management look good, show the president why, or whoever it is, the CEO, you hire this firm to do a job and they do it very well. And we take pride in doing that. And open communication to build trust, consistency, you do what you say you're going to do every time. It's all it's all encompassing, just comes together for trust. And that's what you really want, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We mentioned the fair housing, and that is a topic. It scares people, and there's a
Absolutely.
good reason why it scares people, and it's because it's kind of like, you and I both have done criminal work in our careers.
That's right.
I started out as a prosecutor, and I did some criminal defense work as well.
Yep.
It's like reasonable search and seizures.
Mhm.
What's a reasonable search and seizure? Well, it depends on the circumstances. You know, Fair housing is similar. What's a reasonable accommodation? What's a reasonable modification? Well, it
Yep.
depends on the
It
circumstances.
depends.
And so that's what makes it a little scary for people. And quite frankly, I think because we have, federal and state, and in some instances, local statutes, and then we have the various jurisdictions that hear those cases and interpret those cases and issue their own rulings. They're not always the same. They could even contradict each other,
Yes,
you
they
know?
can.
And so you're like, well, which one do I go with? How do I
Mhm.
know? It's like,
Mhm.
well, the best bet would be, you try to give them direction, but it's not always easy.
It's not.
And I was going to actually mention, I was going to pull up my calendar here because you and I are giving a seminar upcoming here. I'm going to pull it out. I should have had this already, so I could reference this. It's in May, correct? Is that right? It's in
I
May.
think I think it's in May.
And let's see here. We have a fair housing seminar on May 22nd. Yes, May 22nd. And now this is for the Alabama Affordable Housing Association. So this is going to be your neck of the woods, but
Mhm.
the uh, the lady who is putting it on is one of the leaders in the Northwest Florida Apartment Association. So of course, she knew me. She
Mhm.
asked if I'd be willing to do it. I said, sure, let's do it. And then I said, well, what about Taft? Because, he's in Alabama and this is an Alabama Association
You're right.
thing. So, yeah, so that's coming up. So I guess, I don't know if you've got to be a member of that group or whatever, but if you're not a part of the Alabama Affordable Housing Association, then that would be something to look into, at least so you could take advantage of this seminar that we're going to do. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is. And it's always important to have, it goes without saying, but having the most up-to-date information on affordable housing because it is heavily regulated.
Yep.
And if you don't do something just right, just so, it's going to blow up in your face. And, it is to have that trepidation when you hear fair housing or something like that. It's justifiably understandable that you're kind of like, uh, I need to get somebody to help me on this stuff because when you get the feds involved, then it ratchets up a lot.
Yep.
So to have somebody in your corner, attorney, meaning legal counsel, it's very important that's experienced with that, and can guide you through those weird, ever-changing waters. It's again that goes back to stress levels
Yeah.
and peace of mind, and know, hey, Taft or Tim, whoever it is, they have it under control.
The Taft
You
and
know,
Tim show.
yeah, right. The tea time here.
Yeah.
So, they've got it under control. Well, let's just check in to see where the status of the case is. We're still waiting for this, waiting for that. Here's the defenses. This is the information they need from us. Let's get it to them quickly because this case is in front of some HUD investigators or whatever. We got to get this done. So it all ties back into just having a competent counsel matters. It can cost you a lot. It can cost you a lot of money in civil penalties if you don't get the right representation.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
yeah.
think again, going back to the relationship part of it is, your attorney should be helping you prevent these things from ever happening in the first place. So that the conflicts, litigation. I mean, litigation is expensive. Some attorneys, some law firms make their money off of the conflicts. True. But the way we set up our model is we have a retainer, like a monthly retainer that our clients pay for all the advice,
Yeah.
but that retainer is going to be way less expensive than any litigation you could imagine. I mean, even the smallest amounts of litigation can be expensive. So
Absolutely.
having that attorney to say, first of all, here's some material you should be reading. This
Mhm.
is to familiarize yourself with practices, procedures, best practices. And
Mhm.
then whenever questions do arise, again, it's being able to call up your attorney and say, hey, this is the situation. What do you think?
Yeah.
And navigating that so that you don't want your client going through that.
No. I mean, it's and majority of the time, I mean, the if we're still talking about fair housing and HUD complaints, a lot of the stuff in my experience, every HUD complaint we've ever received has been dismissed because it's just nonsense. It's hard to prove some of these things, and some of these people just want to, you know, just drag the system out
Yeah.
and drag it all out because they're upset that they think they got, I don't know, the shaft somehow, and it's just not true. That's why you got to have those great policies that your attorney can write for you, the different addenda that the attorney can write for you, and set you up for success. So when the time does come, you're like, look, we followed our policy exactly the way it's written. We do this across the board for everybody. Here's the proof: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And have it all written down, concise but clear for the HUD investigator. And there's really nothing else more to do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to the person getting competent counsel. And even though it costs more, you're protected in the long run. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. You get what you pay for.
Right. Right. So you guys, we didn't mention this before. I should have said this, but now you're with Lee and Hughes. That's the name of your law firm, right?
Yes.
And Mobile Bay Evictions is your website.
Hmm.
So you guys, I guess by the name of the website, you guys focus on landlord-tenant law. But you, in fair housing, you mentioned. Do you guys do anything else besides that area of law?
We do. We also do things like custom leases, addenda, different agreements that you may have some weird thing that pops up. We do, obviously provide guidance on any weird things that come up or just standard stuff.
Yeah.
I provide fair housing training I teach for the CAM course for National Apartment Association. There's a certified apartment management certification. I teach the fair housing or the legal segment of it.
Yeah.
I've done that several times. I provide fair housing workshops, stuff like that, to the Mobile Bay Apartment Association. Just
But it's
overall,
still all landlord. It's all landlord-tenant related.
that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
All landlord tenant stuff. We're boutique firm, just keep it nice and simple, but it's a small pond, but it's deep, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much information and stuff that we got to go over. So yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Well, we're kind of coming close to our 30-minute mark. I always try to keep these at 30 minutes,
Yeah, sure.
just for the sake of brevity. As much, well, some people may think that's too long, but 30 minutes is brevity for me, I think.
It's
Um,
digestible, I'll say that.
yeah, yeah. Is there anything else, Taft, that you think that the listeners may glean from or learn from on this topic of, hey, find the right attorney. It's going to be in your best interest.
Well, I really we've talked about a lot of stuff, but it comes down to risk management and peace of mind. Those things are huge, and this is, I guess, for me, my preferences, but I'm a very risk adverse person. I think most people are. And
Yep.
then the peace of mind that should something come up, we're covered. And if something does come up and I'm still not sure, or we're still not sure, speaking for the client, they can give it to us and we can make sense of it and make something happen that protects you, the client. And just being a resource, and not we represent, or we handle like landlord tenant stuff, but I I get phone calls every day nearly for stuff that's outside of landlord tenant law. And if I don't know that specific thing, I could be a resource to guide our client to somewhere else. Like,
Yep.
the domestic violence issue that they're having, a personal issue or domestic issue they're having personally, or whatever. I say, it's confidential, obviously, but call this attorney or call that attorney or go here or call this or do this.
Right.
you know, just a one-stop shop is what we try to be, even though we're just landlord tenant, criminal matters, because, like you said, we both have done that in the past. We're very versed in that information or that field of law. But in probate stuff, wills and trusts, when your clients, like, my father's passing away, or he's we need to get this stuff in order. He just passed away. How can I do this? I can guide them a little bit and then show them another attorney to go to. But at least they trust us to give them solid information that they can use not only in their professional lives, but their personal lives too. I think that's a huge way to just keep that relationship very strong,
Yeah.
So.
I've had the same experience. Folks that come to us, or even even business related, to where sometimes they'll get a tenant who makes a claim for like a slip and fall,
Yeah.
or something like that. Now we don't do, we're not a civil litigation defense firm, but I have close connections with lawyers who are.
Mhm.
And so I've connected many clients with attorneys who have serviced them well in that regard.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Having that reference, that resource, that trust, that you can help them with other matters. I think I'm going to end it on, there's an article that the Multifamily Drive website published not too long ago, just a few weeks back, it was a study on the stress level of property managers.
Mhm.
And they went through the various factors and the various, if you want to call them triggers, or the things that these property managers experience on a day-to-day basis. And it talked about how really property managers, suffer from a mental stress that is required in this business.
Yes.
And when I went through that article and I was thinking about what it was that's causing the stress, and of course, we know that they're going through stress because you think about it, they're representing the owner. Okay, the owner has expectations. I mean, they got to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
They have tenants who are pulling them in the opposite direction, and they're trying to balance, keeping tenants happy with also performing and doing their jobs. And the variety of things they've got to go through on a day-to-day basis, whether, lease ups, maintenance, turnover, security deposit claims, fair housing complaints. I mean, you name it. It's a huge task. And I've said this the last seminar that I spoke at in Tampa a few weeks ago. I was like, look, I respect you guys so much because I realize just how hard your job is.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that you need to have other professionals around you who can help carry the load and relieve those stresses. And there's no doubt that having the right attorney is one of the primary relationships that they need to help relieve that stress and really give them more confidence that what they're doing is the right thing to do.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I shadowed two property managers half days last year, like the end of maybe like November or something. And I did it to learn more about what they go through on a daily basis. I know we talk about it, well, I got to do this, got to do that. Well, just to sit and just watch,
Yeah.
While I was in there, we had three different people come in. One guy, this old gentleman, who was talking about his cat for 20 minutes while my client was going to the front desk, to her desk, to this person. And then while this old man was talking about his cat, which he had, it was an authorized animal, everything was fine. The maintenance guy's cousin, who is filling in for him to paint one apartment, was confused about the paint color. So we had the cat man, the painter's cousin, twice removed or whatever he was, coming in talking about paint color, if it's grade number 2, grade number 5, and she's trying to tell me and answer the phone, and I'm like,
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah.
It's tough. It is
Yeah.
tough. And so whenever we ask our clients, we're like, well, let's please send this document back so we can get this thing filed. And we don't hear from them for a day and a half. I get what they're going through. It's not
Yeah.
just like the last thing they have on their mind is an eviction when they're trying to cover these other things, these other fires,
Yep.
proverbial fires that are coming up every second. So I get it. I mean, I
Yep.
get it. So, it's tough. It is
It is
very
a tough
tough.
job.
Yeah.
Well, great. Hey, Taft, I'm going to conclude the show here, man. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you contributing to the podcast and your experiences and the help that you've that you provide for your clients. It's great to see and connect with another attorney who's doing the same thing I'm doing.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Well, for the listeners, this is the Property Management Law Solutions podcast, and you have heard our guest, Taft Hughes. He is an attorney in Alabama, specifically in the Mobile Bay area. Their law firm, Lee and Hughes, is a landlord law firm. And if you're listening and you're in Alabama, then you need to talk to them. You need to talk to Taft. Give them a call. You can go to their website, mobilebayevictions.com. And I will put in the notes how you can get a hold of them as well. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And y'all have a good day. We'll listen to, or y'all, what am I trying to say here? We'll catch you on the next episode, y'all.
Thank you,
Have a
Tim.
good one.